All right, hello and welcome. If you're getting ready for paper 3 in A-level psychology, then you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're going to break down one of the absolute biggest debates in the entire subject, nature versus nurture. Let's get you totally prepped to nail those exam questions. Okay, so what's our game plan? Here's our roadmap for today. And you'll notice it's structured just like a top mark essay would be. We're going to start with the core knowledge. That's your AO1. Then we'll look at how to apply it for AO2, and we'll finish up with that all-important AO3 evaluation. First things first, before we can do anything else, we have to nail down the fundamental AO1 knowledge. This is the bedrock, the absolute foundation for any good answer you're going to give on the nature-nurture debate. I mean, really, this is the big question, isn't it? At its very heart, the entire debate just boils down to this one powerful idea. It's all about figuring out the relative importance of what you inherit, your heredity, versus everything that happens to you, your environment. Okay, so getting this straight is absolutely crucial. Nature is basically our biological blueprint, our genes, the stuff we inherit. Nurture, on the other hand, is everything else. It's the sum of all our experiences, from our upbringing to the culture we live in. Now, you have to remember, historically, psychologists would often plant their flag firmly on one side or the other.
Right, let's get into the evidence. We're starting with Team Nature. To really get those AO1 marks, you've got to know the key studies that back up the idea that our biology, our heredity, plays a massive role.
So, the core idea here is all about genetic determinism, the belief that our genes are the primary drivers of our behavior. Now, psychologists have come up with some really clever ways to investigate this, trying to untangle the influence of genes from the environment, often using things like twin studies and adoption studies.
So what's with this number, 48%? Well, that is the concordance rate for schizophrenia in identical twins, and it comes from Gottesman's absolutely landmark 1991 study. This is a huge piece of evidence for the nature side of the argument. And concordance rate, that's a key bit of research methods terminology you'll definitely want to have in your back pocket. A really high rate, like that 48% we just saw, points to a very strong genetic link. And that's because identical twins, of course, share 100% of their genes.
And look at this. This chart just lays it out so clearly, doesn't it? You can see that as genetic similarity goes down, from identical twins to fraternal twins to just the general population, the risk of developing schizophrenia goes down too. It's such a powerful piece of evidence for your exam answers. Okay, time to flip the coin. Let's switch sides and look at how Team Nurture builds its case. Now we're diving into the evidence that shows the incredible power of our environment. Wow, this famous quote from John B. Watson is, well, it's pretty bold, isn't it? It perfectly captures the whole idea of environmental determinism. You know, the behaviorist school of thought, they argued that we're all born as blank slates and that every single one of our behaviors is learned from our environment. And you absolutely cannot talk about nurture without mentioning Bandura and his famous Bobo doll study. It's a classic. It showed so clearly that complex behaviors like aggression aren't necessarily something we're born with. They can be learned simply through observing and imitating others. It really highlights just how powerful our social environment is in shaping who we become. Okay, so we've seen both sides of the old debate. But, and this is the really important part, today the conversation has moved on. Psychologists now lean towards what's called an interactionist approach. It's a much more sophisticated, more holistic view, and it's perfect for hitting those higher-level AO1 and AO2 marks. So how does this interaction actually work? Well, the diathesis stress model is your best friend here. It's a fantastic way to explain it. The model suggests that someone can inherit a genetic vulnerability, that's the diathesis, but it takes an environmental trigger, the stress, for that vulnerability to actually turn into a disorder. You've probably heard the saying, nature loads the gun, but nurture pulls the trigger. That's this model in a nutshell. And if you need that killer study to back this up, look no further. Caspian and his colleagues found brilliant evidence for this model. They discovered that a specific gene related to serotonin only increased the risk of depression in people who also went through significant stressful life events. It's a perfect example of a gene-environment interaction. Now, if you really want to impress the examiner with some cutting-edge science, you have to talk about epigenetics. This stuff is amazing. It basically shows us that our environment can literally leave marks on our DNA, changing how our genes are expressed. Things like our diet or stress can act like little switches, turning genes on or off. It completely blurs that old, hard line between nature and nurture. Right, let's switch gears. We're heading into AO3 territory now.
Evaluation. This is where you get the really big marks by showing you can think critically about the debate, weighing up all the strengths and all the weaknesses. So here's a summary of your key evaluation points. On the one hand, a massive strength is the real-world impact of this debate. Understanding the interaction between nature and nurture helps us develop better treatments, like combining drugs with therapy for mental health issues. But on the flip side, there are some serious limitations. One of the biggest is the risk of determinism. This idea that if we believe our genes or our upbringing completely dictate our fate, it can lead to some really dangerous attitudes or excuses for behavior. Okay, we have covered a lot of ground. So let's boil it all down. What do you absolutely 100% need to walk away with for your exam? Let's get into the revision essentials.
Here they are. These are your crucial takeaways for getting top marks. First, and I can't say this enough, stop thinking nature versus nurture. It's nature and nurture. Always frame your answer around that modern interactionist approach. Back it up with specific evidence. Gottesman, Bandura, Caspi, know them. And finally, show the examiner you can make those synoptic links by connecting this debate to other topics you've studied, like psychopathology. And I'll leave you with this final thought to chew on. This whole debate, it isn't just some abstract topic for an exam. It gets right to the heart of some of the biggest questions we can ask about determinism, responsibility, and what it really means to be human. Good luck with your revision. You got this.